Well, we're getting some more Game of Thrones. So obviously House of Dragon, or House of the Dragon, apologies, is clearly a slam dunk for HBO and Warner Brothers Discovery. Why? Well, David Zaslav has clearly gone, yeah, we're going to make more. Game of Thrones prequel, another one, about Aegon's Conquest, eyed at HBO. So this is an exclusive to Variety. I'm not massively surprised to see this, but like I said, this does confirm the fact that House of the Dragon is a success. And a lot of people were kind of switched off from that, primarily because of Game of Thrones and how it ended and things. I've got to say, I still like it. I do like House of the Dragon. Really good. Matt Smith is excellent in that role. Superb. So, let's have a look at this. Hit subscribe if you're new here. Turn the bell notifications on. But yeah, more fantasy, more dragons. I'm all game for this. I know, truly I am. I am game for this. I like fantasy. I like sword and sorcery. I'm very, I'm all about this kind of stuff. This is fun. It's a break from the superhero norm. It is also interesting that David Zaslav has obviously seen the potential in this, as opposed to full steam ahead on multiple more superhero elements, because obviously they're not hugely, financially flush at this point in time, but for HBO, they're happy to invest in this over superhero things, which is, I guess, an interesting element as to where the business structure and the world of studios and streaming may be headed. But anyway, a new Game of Thrones prequel about Aegon Targaryen's conquest of Westeros is being actively discussed at HBO. Variety has learned exclusively from sources. So as the project is in its very early stages, no writer is currently attached. Now, I will say this. They say it's being discussed, and there's no writer attached. When they got this information versus to now, it would be further along. So I would imagine a writer is actually probably attached by now. You've always got to factor in from sources sharing information versus publication. Something would have actually progressed. So, sources say that the search is underway as HBO is keen to move forward and get it into development. I am really surprised by House of the Dragon's massive gap between first and second season, and I think that's actually a massive detriment to HBO and just how they're sort of handling themselves. They should not be that much of a gap between seasons. It's not good. You need to strike while the iron is hot. Now, sources also say that there may be a feature component to the project. Now, this is the exciting stuff. Now, that is essentially stating that HBO and Warner Brothers will be producing a feature film that would then lead into the potential series. So they make a film first, and then people go ahead from that film and then go and watch the series. That's a good way to bank a whole bunch of cash, pay for the series, but then also pivot people from theatres, presumably it'd be released in a theatre, to get them to then subscribe to HBO. That's not a bad business model. I don't think that's bad at all, actually. I think that could make a lot of sense. I think that's not a bad one. Out of all of the business structures that we hear from these streaming platforms and things, that's the most appealing. And one which I would say actually makes significant amounts of sense. But also could potentially lead to the most success. Just producing a film and chucking it on HBO. That, to me, if that's what they're implying here, that does not make me want to subscribe to HBO. Putting the film in theatres, getting as many eyes on it as possible. Also, the amount of money you could earn from that is insane. And then going, the story continues on HBO, subscribe or whatever. I think you'd get such a big influx of subscribers, which is what they need. Now, they do say, of course, plans remain in flux at present. Now, the show itself will be telling the story of how Aegon and his sister wives, Visenya, and Rhaenys used their army of their 3 dragons to conquer 6 of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, with the exception of Dorne. In doing so, Aegon the First became the first king of Westeros, the first to sit on the Iron Throne, and the founder of the Targaryen dynasty. Those events took place approximately 300 years prior to the events of Game of Thrones, and then obviously however long before House of the Dragon. HBO's declined to comment on this. That's pretty normal. This would be the latest Westeros-based project at HBO, following the global success of Game of Thrones, and then of course House of the Dragon. Now, there was supposedly some other things which were in the works as well, but they've essentially been scrapped as well, which is a bit of a shame. Now, there was so many things announced. So House of the Dragon, that show went into sort of production, basically. Then there was a pilot for Long Night, but that was abandoned because that was... people basically said this is absolutely garbage, not interested in that at all. And then they pivoted over to House of the Dragon. I think this is a really, really good idea, actually. I do genuinely think this is good. It's also part of Warner Brothers Discovery's mining of IPs. If they release a film in theatres, goad people over from the theatre into HBO, I think that's a great idea. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really good idea from David Zaslav, if that's the case. And it makes sense. Interconnected film TV, I don't know whether I want that to continue over into fantasy elements and things like that, but as a one-off thing, yeah, I quite like it. I do actually quite like it. And like I said, this is what they said that they were going to do. They are now doing it. So it does make a lot of sense. But what do you guys think? Are you keen for this, or are you completely checked out? Did you watch House of the Dragon or not? Because that's important. Those that are checked out and they didn't watch House of the Dragon, I understand. But if you're checked out and you watched House of the Dragon, I would love to know why, I guess. Because I found that series to be pretty damn good. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Would you be keen for this? Would you go to the theatres to watch a Game of Thrones movie? I, for one, absolutely would. I think this would look great on the big screen. So yeah, let me know what you think. Cheers, ladies and gents. Take care.